The New York Rangers have a huge problem as their top players have not shown up yet thus far through the Eastern Conference Final, and it leaves fans fired up and wondering if these guys can turn it on and get the Rangers to the Stanley Cup Final. Welcome back to Rangers Digest. My name is Darius Domingues, and guys, we're just kicking off the channel here, so if you haven't subscribed yet, friendly reminder to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And today we're going to be talking about, that's right, the top line, Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin. They have not been producing like we know them to produce. And if they continue on this cold streak, this could spell real trouble for the New York Rangers, because the Florida Panthers look very good, very dominant at times in this series. And without any pushback from the Rangers' top guys, it's going to be an interesting last 2 or 3 games here in the series. Of course, the Rangers' depth has carried them thus far in the series, I believe at least. But we'll get right into it. This is from the Garden Faithful. If they lose this series, it's going to be hard to just forget about Mika and Panarin's play. I love them both, but this is shocking stuff. They're not just invisible, they're detriments when they're out there. And it's true. If you watch last night's game, I mean, Mika Zibanejad had a tough game. I mean, I love Mika Zibanejad. Obviously, his jersey's hanging behind me. I love Mika Zibanejad, and I think he's been a great piece for the New York Rangers ever since they acquired him 7 odd years ago, whenever it was. But he has been a great player for the Rangers. But since Game 6, even before that, the last half of the Carolina series, he has not been that great or noticeable. He hasn't been putting together great games, and he has been not great in this series. And we'll get to more on Mika Zibanejad later in the video, but we'll focus on Panarin as well. I mean, this is from New York Rangers Louis. I see a lot of criticism of Panarin, and I get it. The production hasn't been where you want it to be, but I'm more worried about Zibanejad. He's been invisible this series. We're pretty much 4 games through without a point for Zibanejad, and that's after a poor end to the Kane series, like I mentioned earlier. And it's true. I mean, Panarin did come to play last night. He had 2 assists, and yes, power play, and you need the power play to get going, so that was a good thing, right? I'm not going to discredit that whatsoever, but you would like to see him more engaged in all the games so far this series. And again, the focus is going to be on Mika in this video because he is one of their highest paid players. Panarin as well, but Panarin has, he had two assists. You can see it on your screen right now. He had 2 assists last night. He's putting in some work, but we need him to be more consistent if the Rangers are going to win this series. And again, from New York Rangers Louis, I do like his insights from time to time. Of course, everyone has their opinion, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. I do like his insights at times. Mika Zibanejad is having one of the worst series I have ever seen. You cannot, and I mean cannot, make $8.5 million and be an absolute no-show. Pointless and costing your team games with bad turnovers. Your second highest paid forward can't be this bad, and that's exactly it. He's the second highest paid forward, and he's been really bad in this series. And we're going to get to the pass and overtime because I really want to break that down. I mean, that is some shocking stuff. Shocking decision-making. It's not the pass itself, the execution. It's just the decision-making, where your head is at. Clearly, he is struggling mentally in this series. He has not been able to put together, a good series thus far at all. And even Ryan Whitney chiming in from Spitting Chicklets. I can't get over how little Zibanejad has done in this series. He was so good in the first 2 rounds, except for, the ending of the Kane series, at least in my opinion, and has disappeared. You can't be throwing it across the offensive blue line like that in OT. Just chop it in. This is a sweep without Igor. Holy S. Holy bleep. He's incredible. And yes, that's the other thing. We're not going to focus too much on Igor, but I did focus on Igor in a post-game video I did yesterday, so go check that out if you haven't seen it. Without him, I don't know what this series looks like. Igor has been absolutely stellar, like fantastic, lights out, making saves he absolutely shouldn't, keeping them in games. And again, he's letting a couple goals that maybe shouldn't go in, but when you're making saves like that and you're putting together like 40 save games, or seeing 40 shots in a game, there's only so much you can do when your defense isn't helping you and you're not getting offensive help at the same time. So there's only so much you can do. But from Lady Liberty as well, this is becoming a problem. It's true. If you really break it down and look at it, Mika Zibanejad hasn't scored in 10 games. Artemi Panarin hasn't scored in 7 games. Chris Kreider hasn't scored in 5 games. That's a problem. Time we start discussing this. It's a problem. it is a problem. I'll leave it up on screen for a minute so you can really digest these numbers. I mean, Mika hasn't scored in his last 10 playoff games. This is becoming a huge problem for him, especially him. Panarin, too, of course. He's setting up plays, which is nice. You want him to get involved, but he hasn't scored in 7 games. And then Kreider is the guy. Like, Kreider is the guy you need to score. Kreider is a scorer on this team. This is what he does. He's an offensive mind, right? And he hasn't scored in 5 games. He hasn't scored since Game 6 of the Carolina series, where, yes, he scored a hat trick and he got them to the third round, but he hasn't done much since then, man. He has been so quiet, absolutely quiet in this series. Like, you haven't really noticed him. He hasn't asserted himself in certain ways. I mean, yesterday, screening the goalie, yes, on the Trocheck goal, but great shot from Trocheck. You like the power play to get going. That's great. But he hasn't really asserted himself into this series yet and put a stamp on it. We're 4 games in. We're heading to Game 5 in New York now. We're heading back to New York. He needs to put a stamp on this series. There's still a great chance for the Rangers to win this. Like, they are not out of this by any means. They put themselves in a great opportunity winning those 2 overtime games. Great opportunity. So they're not out of it by any means. And when we take a look at the chart from yesterday's game as well, I mean, like I mentioned, Panarin, he did have a great game. He did kind of show up for them yesterday offensively at least, but there's a lot of guys you have to wonder if Ryan Lindgren is injured as well, because he had a tough game and he's feeling it. You can see out there. Even Adam Fox, I mean, Fox had a great game offensively, so ranked a little bit higher, but even Fox, I mean, you can tell he's injured. But again, look, if you have Mika Zibanejad, guys like Mika Zibanejad and Jacob Trouba on the bottom half of this chart, and their numbers look the way they do in a game as pivotal as Game 4, you have a bit of an issue. You have to really look at that stuff. And I mean, when you look at the top end, yes, the numbers could be a little skewed because, of course, Matt Rempe doesn't play that much. But with a larger sample size, you cannot be that, bad defensively or all around if you're Mika Zibanejad, for example. And I hate to dump on the guy. I love him. Like I said, I got his jersey right here, right? I love Mika Zibanejad, but they need more out of him. They absolutely need more out of him. And again, I told you I was going to break this down. Mika Zibanejad had something to say about this play after the game. He said, obviously, I should have probably made a different play decision. Just come back and try to make another decisions next time and hope that it goes my way. And he thought Wheeler was more open with Cooley headed to the net. And honestly, when you look at this screenshot and you look at the breakdown of the play, look at everyone in the zone. The Panthers have 3 high. Zibanejad could easily just put this deep in the zone, and I think it's Cooley going towards the net that he could get this probably behind the net, or at least forecheck. I'm not sure what Wheeler's going to do with that pass, man. I just don't know about the decision making here. I have no idea what Wheeler's supposed to do with that pass. It's really shocking stuff. Honestly, puzzling decision from me. Like, if you just look at the screenshot, I have no idea what Wheeler is going to do with this pass. I have no idea what Zibanejad thinks is going to happen with this pass, because just looking at this, the formation the Panthers are in, it's going to get picked off. Something bad's going to happen. So that's just the way it is. And even Laviolette is a little lost for words on this, the top line and the top players. We're spending a little too much time playing defense, especially in the second period. And yes, they were on their heels in the second period. And again, it dictated the game. He didn't like what he's seeing, and Laviolette's seeing it too. He's puzzled, and I think this was a great, tweet here as well. This quote from Lavi is really telling. Basically, the third head coach to come in here and have zero explanation why this core just completely disappears in some of the most crucial spots, and it's true. I mean, they're there the first 2 rounds, and they're putting together great games. Chris Kreider scores a hat trick to send them to the Eastern Conference Final, and they can't figure it out now. They have no firepower, and credit to the Florida Panthers. They're a very good team. Maybe they're neutralizing them, but it just looks to me like they can't get it going. It doesn't look like they're neutralizing them. It looks like they are unable to get it going. They're going to have to get it going because Game 5 is back in New York. It's now a best of 3, and we're going to keep you updated for everything here on the channel. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button.